In fact, in the textbook it says, here's all the examples of changed moths with changed genetic code. All of these are destructive, but we believe that a constructive change is how we got here, but we don't have any examples of that. I think some of the evidence is missing. Say you went through the jungle and suddenly you came across this building. And you think, wow, how the wind eroded the shape of that over millions of years. Then at further inspection, you see the door and you see what looks like steps. And you say, no, I think that's an ancient civilization that made that building. Isn't that scientific to look at the structure, the design, and conclude it was made, it was designed, it wasn't eroded by random processes? Again, no one would look at this Mount Rushmore mountain in America and say that the wind and the rain carved out the faces of those 4 famous American presidents. We would say that someone chiseled that out over years or months, decades, and someone designed that to look like those faces. The human face is clearly designed. How much more your human face, not just in rock, but with all the functionality clearly designed. That could never, there might be a chance in a million billion that some of the nose could come in a rain, but not such design like that. No one would believe that that came about by random processes. It's far more scientific to say that is the result of an artist, an intelligent being that carved out those faces. How much more your face, the real face, is actually designed. Again, if we find these patterns and these symbols and writing, we would conclude, oh, this must be an ancient language. Actually, it's ancient hieroglyphics. And correct, we look at the evidence and we see there's design implications. Now, Darwin said, well, the single cell is just a plasma. It's very, very simple. It's just some chemicals. And therefore he started his theory there with already having cells. But now when we look at the cell today, we realize we can't just start there. We have to go back and say, where does this cell come from? A single cell is more advanced than the satellites orbiting the Earth. And let's look at this video which shows how complex a cell is.
So what is in a cell as far as we know now?
A world that Darwin never could have imagined.
I needed someone who could give me a glimpse into this world. So we went to molecular biologist Doug Axe.
Think of a cell as being a nano factory, a factory where on a very small scale, digital instructions are being used to make the components of the factory. Here we have the famous DNA double helix. You can see the 2 helical strands that are intertwined and wind around each other on the outside of the molecule. This is the material that stores all of our genetic information. In higher life forms, this will be the equivalent of something like a gigabyte of information stored in the molecules that form the individual chromosomes, all packed within the nucleus, which is a tiny fraction of the entire cell size. So what does DNA do? Well, the information in DNA ends up providing the information for sequencing the amino acids to make protein. We have information in a one-dimensional form that provides the information for a three-dimensional form.
finally just beginning to grasp the complexity of the cell. Are there systems within the cell that go well beyond Darwinian evolution? Some type of cellular technology that drives adaptation, replication, quality control, and repair? What if these new mechanisms have massive design implications? Well, I say, so be it.
The cell really is like nothing we've ever seen in the physical world. That's got to be firmly grasped. That's not something we can just say, oh, well, it's just a little bit more of the same old, same old. It's not the same old, same old.
We are finding is that there's information that's in the cell that cannot be accounted for in terms of these undirected material causes. So
it has to be.
And so there's some other, so it has to be an information source.
So one of the key questions faced by modern biology is, where do you get information from?
Well, Darwin assumed that the increase in information comes from natural selection. But natural selection reduces genetic information, and we know this from all the genetic population studies that we have.
And where does the new genetic information going to come from?
Well, that's the big question.
So when we find information in the DNA molecule, the most likely explanation is that it too had an intelligent source.
I mean, we need engineering principles to understand these systems, okay? I mean, it's only because of our advancements in nanotechnology that we can even begin to appreciate these systems.
But using intelligent design didn't seem to stop the scientists I spoke with, so why all the controversy?
Suppose we find, simply as a matter of fact, that our scientific inquiries point in one direction.
Which is that there is an intelligent creator.
Why should we eliminate that from discussion?